Holy shit! Well, hello again, everybody. We have returned to provide you with another episode of Canadian content, and a continuation of this sad Electrohome TV. In the last video, we dove right into this and diagnosed that it's got a lot of funky problems going on, including the fact that it looks like it turns on, but then does nothing. So we hauled the chassis out, which we got right here, and discovered that it's very cooked. Before we get into anything major, we have to bring back the Rejuvenator.
The Rejuvenator. The Rejuvenator.
Yes, the Rejuvenator. I wish I could hook myself up to the Rejuvenator on a Monday morning just to get me going, but if the tube's no good, then this project's no good. So on that note, let's proceed. Want to get this warmed up to 6.3 volts. The cutoff. You should see the guns go up. Ooh, it's not great. Really not great. The blue gun is up at 7. Let's just warm it up a little more. So, yeah, emissions on red are very low. I might just try the cleaning first. Look at, holy smokes. Sorry, just slamming the heater. Burn off all the crud on the cathode. Back down. Go. Cool. Let's do... So we're going to go to the blue gun now. Oh yeah, look, there we go. Still a little bit of stuff flashing in there. That's the main thing. We got the Balrog, the Dwarven Miners down below. Should still be pretty hot. Should be able to crank this up, see where our emissions are at. That's better. Yep, that definitely made an improvement, so we can move on with this. So the tube is now looking promising. This nightmare, on the other hand, is a whole different story. And although we determined the main issues that are going on with this, actually finding the parts and changing the parts is a whole other challenge. A lot of these parts are not even being made anymore, such as flyback transformers. So with that being said, that's the first thing we're going to go hunt for, is a flyback transformer.
The Flyback Transformer.
Oh joy. Well, sadly I didn't have a whole lot of luck, but we do have 3 possibilities from all of those flyback transformers. I did not have the exact one, which, surprise, surprise, there's so many different types. The part number on this particular flyback is a 334 P10802. I don't even have to tell you just how crispy that is. That's why, you know, doing a visual inspection of stuff like this is the first thing you want to do. Let's remove this flyback and get a closer look at it. I know one thing for sure, I'll be very glad to see this gummy, scummy anode cap disappear. Sheevers, that is just gnarly Shrek levels of slime right there. You know, eventually you gotta clean these darn things. You let the solder build up and it just turns into this big wad. Oh, yeah, look at that. Let's see. Popped right out. You can actually see these. Ooh. That's crispy. That's crispy critters, man. Well, we got our flyback free. Now, remember how I said, you know, that I was gonna get some gloves to make this less grimy? I still never did that. I'm just kind of used to it by now. It's like a mechanic, you know, you get well-seasoned hands after a while. This is not nearly as bad as mechanic work. Yeah, look, whoa. Yeah, there's a crack right in there. Here's one that's looking a little better. If we go to the bottom, totally different pins. I think this is one of the ones that look the most promising. This does look brand new. Again, it's not the same. This looks similar to the substitute part that I was seeing on eBay. The spacing is not the same. Don't touch your face when you're doing this. All right, our last victim. Ooh, yeah, no, see how these are all closer together than the ones over here? It's not gonna work. That's basically, this is the same as like that other one I just pulled out. Yeah, this is how it goes with this stuff.
12 seconds later.
Well, in this box is hopefully the flyback transformer I need to finally start putting this together. I had to order this all the way from the US, New York specifically, about 2 weeks. Hopefully the part that I ordered is, first of all, the right one, and second of all, compatible, because this is apparently a substitute. I have also gathered up a handful of other parts here. Got some capacitors, we got a horizontal output transistor. This is a 2SD1175. According to the trusty ECG book, it is a USD870 is an ECG89 or NTE89, I guess. These are kind of useful, but now you can just search everything up online. And according to that, the 2SD1175 is a suitable substitute. We'll see. Yeah, let's get back to it. The flyback, the flyback, the flyback. This does, in fact, have part number on there. It's got a 334P10802, which is the correct part number. The core on this one looks slightly smaller. The focus and screen controls are, yeah, they're quite a bit different. We also have a mounting screw located here, which is not going to line up with this mounting bracket. I don't know. But this is all we got to work with. At least the lead spacing here looks the same. Alright. Well, we have somewhere to start. I think it is safe to say that We will no longer be needing this crusty old thing. So, cut this wire, cut this wire. I am so glad to see this go. Ah, the forbidden stethoscope is so... it's moldable. Bye-bye. Let's just get the vacuum cleaner out. I'd say that's about as clean of a whistle as you're gonna get. It's a whole lot better than it was. Now I can actually see what I'm working with. Wiggly capacitors. Mitsubishi. I'm gonna humor myself and assume that there's a service manual somewhere around here for this miserable thing. EL, Electrohome, Grundig. EL, I see 63 CFB for 63 CB11. And ET03. I know this drawer didn't have what I was looking for. Well, this looks promising down here though. Look at that. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Let's see if there's anything helpful to us. Technical bulletin. February 24th, 1986. Symptom repeated loss of video failure of IC201 and Q201. Well, we're not even at that stage yet. Is this confidential? Should I even be looking at this right now? I don't see any schematics. I mean, that looks totally different. Remember when you had to have a balanced to coax adapter? No schematic, so we're gonna bring back our handy little tester here and see what the 2SD 1175 looks like. Shows up as 2 diodes. What I've done here is I've just disconnected the emitter and the collector of the horizontal output transistor, and we're going to see what the tester picks up on it. Let's just see what the data sheet looks like. This is measuring the same as that other transistor. I think that this horizontal output may be fine. It looks like there's an internal resistor maybe, and then there's a diode. This is an NPN collector to base voltage of 1500 volts. That's crazy. 600 volts collector to emitter. It's rated for 5 amps collector current. So we can just leave that alone for now. It's just mainly going to be capacitors and that flyback from here on. Let's pull the big one. So this right here is our main filter. All be jiggered. Oh my god. I never assume that something is discharged. Oh yeah, now it's discharged. Like friggin' pliers. That was quite the bang. This thing was just sitting there with a full charge, even though there was no power getting to it. Now we get access to this little capacitor in here. It's a 10 at 160. It's 9.7 microfarad, but the ESR is 8.8 ohms, which is pretty darn high. It's supposed to be 100 at 250. See what we get. 96. Oh. Wow. We've got half a capacitor. This is a 10 at 350? Wow. This whole area gets very hot, therefore the majority of the capacitors in this area have just been completely baked. This one's fine, and these two are fine. The rest of them were either really high ESR, or way down in value. Also changed out the main capacitor because original capacitor is only rated at 180 volts. Put a 250 volt DC rated capacitor in here. It's also rated at 105 degrees Celsius. This resistor here should be a 2.7 ohm, 3.2, yeah. 10 ohms is fine. Big one here, I can't really see what the value is on it because the value is burned off, but it says 271, so that's going to be a 270 ohm. I think this is a 2.2, 1.7, that's fine. 1.8, that's fine. We go over to diode mode. Ideally, this diode down here should have no leakage, but it should voltage in this direction. And there we go, 0.5 volts a drop, and that's a pretty normal diode. 0.52 volts drop. Most diodes are going to have a voltage drop of around 0.5 volts, half a volt basically. The reason we're doing this is just to make sure that there isn't anything we are missing besides a burned flyback and bad capacitors. I'm just going to go through and touch up the solder joints that have any signs of cracks in them. Yeah, let's move on to getting this flyback transformer installed. First, I gotta straighten these darn pins out. You know, aftermarket parts. If this works, I'm gonna give these guys a huge shout out at the end of my video, because I could not find this darn part anywhere else. Alright, we're ready to go. I should be able to just sit this in there. Oh look, label's already fallen off. We've run into our first problem. See how these controls are up higher on this one? Well, has a metal flange here that's preventing them from fitting in. What can you do? This is aluminum, so it should be fairly easy to carve it away with a file. Once again, the Conca TV is still working. Its flyback is happy. This Electrohome that has been properly housed and taken care of, the flyback has completely shit itself. You ever seen something so cromulent and crispy? The Conca! No. Aluminum dust, don't breathe this. That's not too bad. Alright, so all we have left are these two wires. They go to the two controls on the back for the screen and focus. I'm pretty sure these are related to that. This little cover here that just slides off. It looks like this wire is soldered in place. Now the other wire, it has an S on it, so I guess maybe that's for screen, for brightness. Alright, this shouldn't be too hard to remove here. There we go. Should be able to just slip that through there. And then, bingo! Slip on in here. Bend it over. We'll solder our, what I believe is the screen wire. I've already gone through and resoldered any joints on here that I thought looked cracked. Over here you got 3 pots. This is a CRT cutoff. So these control the individual guns. You got blue, green, and red controls here, so that you can actually adjust the colors. Also got, it looks like B drive, which I assume is blue drive, and then R drive, which I assume is red drive. So yeah, we are now finished with the neck board. Right over here we have a 1.2 amp fuse. We can install this now. And for anybody curious and wondering what this little box is here, this is actually a thermistor, which is in series with the degaussing coil. They're for current limiting. Take the cover off and you can see it's got 2 thermistors in it, and as they warm up or cool down, the resistance of them changes. Normally they're used for inrush current limiting in power supplies. Yeah, there's NTC and PTC. So NTC is negative temperature coefficient and PTC is positive temperature coefficient. Now, I want to try and pull these little wafers out. Oh, there we go. This one's coming out. And so what it looks, I think they're made out of some sort of ceramic, conductive ceramic. As you can see, there's conductive surface on both sides, silver plating. That's a small one, and then there's a bigger one in here as well. Roll that on out. It's a very interesting device, and it's kind of neat that you can remove these. It almost looks like candy, but I wouldn't recommend eating it because it probably tastes bad. It's some sort of thermistor, and it runs in series with the degaussing coil. The degaussing coil is meant to just be on temporarily. Yeah, interesting component. Well, would you look at that? I think we're finally done. Now, something I am really happy about is that the forbidden stethoscope is no longer sticky and icky. I think that is probably our greatest accomplishment. So, let's get everything put back together and see what happens. Alright, I almost forgot. We gotta still deal with this mess over here. Yeah, I gotta peel that off. Might as well clean the tube while I'm at it. Alright, that's a little bit better. Now, I don't want to remove the dielectric grease there because that just helps prevent arcing. Well, last time we were here, I was taking the chassis out. So now, let's see how easy it is to put back in. Yeah, there we go. That was pretty easy. Now we gotta hook up all this stuff. Put the degaussing wire. This goes back here. The yoke wire goes down in here. There's one rainbow wire. This one goes here. This one goes here. That's a ground wire, I'm pretty sure. This is for speaker. Now we're into the real meat and potatoes. That flyback wire. That screen, that red wire there is not long enough. I think I got to apply for an extension on that. To be honest, I would rate my splicing job a 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10 because it's good enough. Make sure it's fully seated. Yeah, there we go. Forbidden stethoscope. grab, suction, that's what we want. Oh, let's plug this in before we forget. This is for the ground strap. Yeah, I just like to use one of these little insulating spacers. It'll keep any possibility of the this wire arcing to the shield here. It's very unlikely, but now for the moment we've all been waiting for. I'm both excited and concerned. Nothing? Alright, so we've gone datasheet hunting. And the control IC, it's actually a UPD 1709C, but I found a datasheet for a 1703C because the 1709C datasheet I cannot find. Here we go. So pin 27 we have ground, and then pin 14 is 5 volt power. And pin 3 is very important, CE, which is for, this input is used to designate the standby mode to the chip. When I measure that pin 3, nothing there. And 5 volts on pin 14, which is normal. When I press the power button, nothing changes on pin 3. Let's not get any further into this because I'm pretty sure I found what my issue is. When you're working on this stuff, you got to take notes. You got to keep track of what you're doing, double check, triple check everything. I'm sure if I went back and looked at the previous video, I would have caught this before making this mistake. This is for the remote, transmitter and receiver, and then there you've got the relay, which turns the TV on and off. So yeah, there's the segment display, and yeah, there's the UPD 1703, and there's your keypad there. Got two connectors. They actually have labels on the board. This says CH, and then this one says CB down right in there. If you follow these wires, well, look, this one says CB on that control board. Over here on the infrared receiver board says CH. Well, CH, which is supposed to be this one here, is actually supposed to be over here, and CB is supposed to be there. This is CH. So let's also take into consideration that I still have the fuse for the high voltage removed. All I want to see right now is the controls work again. Now if we hit power, click. And what do you know? We're back in business. Let's install the high voltage fuse. Alright, moment of truth. Well, that looks like a fuse blew. I'm not going to go ahead and assume that there wasn't any high voltage at all. Yeah, no, there's nothing. Well, let's pull this out and get it on the bench again, just so I don't mix this up again. The joys of having the same connector in the same general area, you know. So we're just going to use a 560 ohm resistor here. And see a little fizzle. There's 1.5 volts there. Look, it's rising. See, they come back. And I'm thinking that horizontal output transistor is actually bad. This transistor is not using a socket, from what I can tell. Even after work hours, the phone never leaves me alone around here. And there we are. Now, I'm beginning to think that this little guy overheated because, look, there's no thermal paste here. There ain't going to be no cooling going on for this. Kind of remembering. There's stuff under the bench here. That. And then, let's see here. What's this jar? Oh my. Look at them all. Oh. Spiders. What's sort of throwing me off with these is that this is one that I pulled out of the parts drawers out back that is supposed to be a substitute for 2SD 870. This is a 2SD 1175. And if we measure from base to emitter, we get 88 ohms this way. And yeah, my tester just sees this. If I go from base to emitter, I get an 82 ohm resistor. So is this bad? Is this bad? Is that also bad? Like, are these just all bad? I don't know. If I test it like a transistor, it shows up as 2 diodes. Grab this 2SC 1172, and that's reading as a transistor. So let's bring this back with our friends here. There's a coil that's going from base to emitter. 49 ohms. Here's our replacement. Oh my god, it looks so much dirtier. So the data sheet for our 2SD 870. This is a TO3 package. We look at our collector emitter voltage. Peak value is 1500 volts. Collector emitter voltage is 600 volts. Collector current is 5 amps. Power dissipation 50 watts. The 2SC 1172, it's basically specified as a TV horizontal output transistor as well. We've got 1500 volts collector base voltage once again. And the collector emitter voltage is actually a bit higher at 800 volts. And the emitter base voltage is 6 volts. We've got 5 amp collector current, 50 watt power dissipation. So I want to make sure that this is actually clean. Well, you know, we're not going to find them handsome, but we'll at least find them handy. The thermal paste. Get a jar. Do yourself a favor if you get thermal paste. You just mix it up once in a while. You don't need very much. Take our transistor here. Spread it a little bit, just like you're gonna bake a cake or something, spreading your icing. Now we can take our insulator, just slide in, push that on there. Now we want to do the same thing on the surface of this. You don't gotta go crazy with it. In this case, you've got an insulator in between. You got very high voltages going through this transistor. You got to insulate it from the heatsink. This, I'm gonna have to hold the socket in place. The socket, there we go. It's fully seated between the insulators. When I push the back of the socket, see, it's pushing the transistor out. So you got to get that lined up. There's actually insulators that go into the holes, and then the screws go through the insulators. So you got to make sure those are lined up. Thermal paste squeezing out nice and evenly. Now start tightening them down, go back and forth. They don't gotta be crazy tight. The collector power is going through these 2 screws to the back of the socket. Base wire. Alright, we've got our transistor installed. Let's install this again and see if we got any further or if we still have more issues. Right, I need another fuse. These boys are out of a job, and these boys fuse. I won't make that mistake again. This one's not fooling me either, because at least this one has a keyway, so I can't put it on backwards like somebody like Shango showed in one of his videos. Alright, well, take two. That sounded scary. Holy shit! Let this warm up here. Yeah, good, good. I smell things warming up. So it ran for a few minutes, and then it made a little snap, and then blew the fuse again. And it was made the same sort of little snap that we were hearing earlier when it was running. And there is a blob of solder that fell down in here while I was working on this. Down in between a diode and a resistor. Yeah. Let's get that blob of solder out of there. Yeah, I won't be happy if that just killed the TV again. Well, you know what they say, third time's a charm. Hopefully. It just went kaboom.
At this point, I decided that it was probably in my best interest to clean up the mess I left behind under the flyback transformer. Excessive flux can create a potential for arcing between points, besides the fact that it just looks messy. So let's get this cleaned up with a bit of gentle scraping and some rubbing alcohol. Next, I wanted to address this tired looking ground point, which is mounted through the heatsink. We can simply replace this with a piece of component lead wire, bent to the right length.
We're gonna try this again. What else is gonna blow up? It sounds better this time. No snapping. So this is kind of the result that I've got right now. It's this tricky thing. Trying to get faces to look natural. This control 2 does. Okay, yeah. We can also turn the brightness down or a little more. I think pretty much adjusting the flyback allows me to keep this in the middle. See, up there is too much, and below the middle is too little. So now we got a range to work with. Contrast is all the way up. Probably doesn't need to be. I think pretty much in the middle, actually. Again, it's looking pretty good. So this thing is fully working now. It's been running for about 10 minutes, and I've heard no snaps or cracks. That blob solder definitely was an issue, and I think it could have also been arcing around where the solder joints on the flyback were, because there was a lot of flux there. I forgot to clean it all off. There's lots to learn from this project for me, and lots to learn from this video for all you viewers, in terms of troubleshooting all that could possibly be wrong with one of these TVs. The picture tube looks great, unlike the Toshiba, which is very green. This TV was a nightmare to rebuild, unlike the Conca. The Conca just worked. I still can't get around that. My boss tells me that these Mitsubishi TVs were very dependable overall. The controls never gave any issues with them, when he said that he's never had a control problem. That basically led me in the direction of that mistake. I haven't had to touch any of the adjustments on the back here. There's, let's say, V line, I think. and sub-contrast maybe. And then there's a service switch. I'm not going to even touch it. This thing's working fine. And then up here on the neck board, you got the adjustments for the individual guns. Again, not going to touch it. You know, the flyback I had to replace, so that had to be dialed back in. It's the second horizontal output transistor. I guess technically the third, really, because the second one blew. It was basically telling me I should go back and do some more cleanup. Addressed a grounding problem on one of the screws over there. Our sticky flyback, the anode cap, no longer sticky. That's the most important thing that we have achieved today. Picture tube just humming away. Now, what are the chances that I might be able to find a remote for this? It's Hitachi. Oh, that's an Electrohome. That looks like a Mitsubishi Electrohome remote. Let's see what else we can find in this box of goodies. Here's another one. Shiba. Oh, that looks old. That's an Electrohome remote, yeah. Another old one in here. Last time I was digging around. Yeah, that's one there too. Let's give these a try. So this one here honestly looks the most promising. It's got the same control configuration as the front panel on here. So what happens if I... Oh, hell yeah. That's pretty sweet. Will she turn back on? Oh yeah, yeah. Look at that. Volume? Volume. We have volume. Sweet. If only I had a back. I'll take what I can get. Well, it would seem that we have blown our horizontal output again. I would say there are a few more gremlins we have to sort out in the horizontal circuit. There's either an issue with the horizontal drive oscillator, or there's an issue with the horizontal drive transformer to the horizontal output transistor. Either way, we're going to have to put this project on the back shelf for a while because this has taken up way too much of my time. We'll come back to this project later on. It was nice to see that it was working. I had it all dialed in and then it died, and it was... So I guess there's going to be a part 3 at some point. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you found it useful or helpful, interesting, please leave a like on the video or a comment below. I do plan on setting up a Patreon to accept donations at some point. I'm doing this in my spare time. I'm not making any money off of this, not sponsored by anybody. I strictly just doing this on my own right now. Where I'm shooting the videos is actually at my workplace. Because it's the only place to have something this big currently. Also, shout out to JSO Electronics for having a flyback available. Without that part, this project would not have been possible. And like always, thanks for watching.